Hey, ladies.
Hey,
Hello. Wow. We are so excited today, Heartbeats. Ladies and gentlemen, listeners, everybody. Yes, everybody. We are super excited. So we are on episode 57, and we have a special treat in store for you all today. We have a special guest in the house. Y'all want me to do the horn? I can do it.
Go ahead, do it, Linda.
Because I haven't done it in a while. Okay.
She's like itching to do it.
And it's fall right now. It's like November. We're recording this when this goes live. Like my throat, I don't need my
tea
this morning. I had coffee. I had probably too much coffee because I'm like super hyped. But okay, I gotta do my horn, y'all. There it is. See, gotta do the horn. But I am gonna have some tea, Jeanette, because it is cold.
Yeah.
Yes, welcome to episode 57, special guest in the house. The title of this episode to continue our power series is The Power of Accountability, Own Your Ish. And I got way in the camera for those watching on YouTube. Yes.
I was like, can I say that? Well, they know. I said, they will know.
I know. Did I say, Jeanette was like, yes, they're going to know. I was like, they're going to know what that means. So that's me kind of checking all these. See, that's why we're here, Dr. Jackson. So Dr. Jaquinda Jackson, and thank you so much for joining us today. We really appreciate it. And I'm gonna throw it over to Jeanette to do some additional introductions, and we're super excited to be having this conversation with you.
Yeah, no, I'm excited to have you here today, Dr. Jackson. I appreciate you coming on. I knew you were the right person for this topic of owning your ish. So I'm here in South Carolina, and so is Dr. Jackson. And I'm going to let her give you a better formal introduction, because I always say it wrong, because you licensed professional counselors, therapists, y'all have all these L's and I's and C's and W's behind y'all names, and I'm gonna miss one and then be like, no, that is not it. But you can introduce yourself to the people for me.
So I am Dr. Jaquinda Jackson. I am a licensed professional counselor. I also am national certified. And with my EDD at the end, I am a doctor in counseling psychology. However, I specialize specifically in trauma work and education. And then I realized that if we don't address the root of the trauma, then nothing else can be dealt with. So I shifted my practice and how I work to specifically work with trauma. Mm-hmm. And I feel like that's a mouthful. So basically, I'm your favorite trauma therapist.
There you go. I love that. And I think people don't realize that they have trauma, or that certain things was that was trauma. Or they might have and people only associate PTSD with military war and stuff like that. And there's so many things that has happened to us. And Shawna talks about this a lot, Dr. Jackson, about the inner child. So she speaks a lot about that when she does speaking engagements, about doing the inner child work and healing the inner child. So Linda, go ahead. I'll let you kick it off and get us started.
Yes. And thank you again for joining us. We're super excited, and later we're going to get into some other things. You said, I have some favorite episodes. We're going to get into that later, because I think a lot of that will tie in, and we're going to have some fun. So just having a great conversation. So one of the things, and I like that you brought that up, Jeanette, about Shawna's inner child work, because it's starting from there. And we even though we're talking about the adults in this process, and some of what we want to talk about today is the power of accountability as we are in our adulthood. But we really do think it goes back to that, that child part of it. And how do you recognize that? What is the power of accountability in your perspective, Dr. Jackson? What are your early initial thoughts on that?
Twofold. Obviously, when we think about accountability, oftentimes we think about it being in the present, being accountable for our actions in the now. However, it's rooted in how we grew up, our experiences, to be very transparent as a mother, even how we allow our children to handle conflict. Because I feel like now we in the age of, parents want to jump in, but we're taking away, by doing that, you're taking away from your child's ability to manage and be accountable for his or her own personal actions.
That's huge.
Yes, it is. That's a topic in itself. And yeah, I mean, I mean, I want to see what Shawna also, I know Shawna, you look like you have a
Shawna was really passionate about this topic because
yes, that is
I am so tired of people not owning up to it. No.
Yeah.
really passionate about this topic. I just want
Yes,
you to know.
yes.
Yes. I agree with Dr. Jackson as far as, when it comes to conflict solutions. That's actually one of the lessons, and it was part of my strategic planning when I worked with families and children on giving them that opportunity to learn that, to craft that, to hone those skills in. Because later on in life, they're going to need that. They're going to be able to reflect on how to solve, how to be a conflict solution, how to look at themselves in the mirror, how to recognize what place and space that they play in that, and how can they improve if they found themselves in that situation again. And if you don't reflect and you don't know what's happening with yourself, you're just gonna keep on with what I like to keep saying, building up all these elephants in a room, and then you lash out and you're blaming everybody for everything that's not going right in your life, when ultimately you are responsible for what's happening. And it's not okay to hand people your ish. And I've just seen this more and more every day, that we're just getting so complacent and comfortable with just passing the buck, not looking in the mirror and blaming other people for our lives. And I'm like, over it.
Yeah, for sure. And I think too, what we have seen during COVID is that people had to slow down, but they had to slow down. I mean, you were stuck in the house with your family or stuck in your community. And oftentimes culturally, it's just like, oh, like that's how they act. And we'll let that be that. But the reality of it is that when they leave our community or when they leave our house, when they go into the workplace or when they go into the school, like you don't get a pass. So we do a disservice by just like, oh, like that's just how they act. When the reality of it is that they need to be held accountable within their environment. Which leads me to my plug of therapy. You need somebody neutral outside of your community, outside of your home, outside of even like your friendship circle, to be like, hey girl, like that ain't ish. Or, like if you're doing this, why do you continue to repeat this cycle?
Because even if you have friends that are honest with you and are telling you the truth, sometimes it's hard for people to accept that, because they feel like, oh, she just being negative, or she just hating on me, or like no. Or even if you've done the work and you've grown, and then now you're trying to help a friend out, they're like, oh, you think you better than me. And so having, like you said, that neutral person that is not within your immediate circle to help you through those things. And then sometimes you just be in denial, right? You be like, full transparency, Dr. Jackson is my therapist. I just want y'all to know that. But and let me tell you, I remember I've heard so many people like, you need to go talk to her. You need to go talk to her. Let me tell you her information. But like she was like, yeah, so next week we're gonna talk about your childhood. And I was like, I was good. Like I ain't got no childhood issues.
That was your face. That was your face.
Good.
That's Jeanette's face.
But sometimes like you just suppress stuff so much you forgot like the things that happen that has triggered different things within you and has shaped who you are. Like even just something as simple that you think is a good thing, like, oh, I love to help people. Yeah, you are either like codependent or like your whole identity is wrapped up in being in helping other people. And one of the realizations that I had with myself was that I don't want to be forgotten. And so like if people don't need, I had a thing where I needed people to need me, because if they didn't need me, then like who was I outside of being able to help somebody or feel needed or wanted by other people? And that's not good. That's a problem. So even though it looks like you're doing a good thing, right? And like, I'm helping people need me. Like, yeah, but that's wrapped up in some other type of insecurities of why you always need people around you.
Yeah.
May I bring up the episode on Insecure, when Molly decided to finally go speak to a therapist. Dr. Jackson, have you watched Insecure?
Yes.
She's like, okay, all right, so good.
Yes.
That's good. I wanted to ask you, like, so for Molly's situation, like she needed to talk to someone, and she needed to go outside of her friend circle. Do you feel like, from what we witnessed so far, we don't know what season 5 is going to bring us, but at the end of season 4, because I just rewatched it, she ended up being back at the restaurant with Issa, and they both are they're both alone now. Like everybody's removed in it. There's just them two now. Do you feel like, when you're doing this work professionally, can you include your friends and family for the ride, or you feel like she needs to sit within herself and make these changes before kind of going back out there with her crew or tribe?
Best practice is to sit with and work with it by yourself. Because life is happening. Life is very rhythmic. We move, we like our certain friends. I personally like how on Insecure, how they have their favorite restaurants. And when they celebrate at certain restaurants or have certain like drinks, which shows the reality of the rhythmic life. So anytime that you are working on growth, I always say sit with it with yourself. However, recently, and this is a shameless plug, but I started doing community processing groups in which I opened it up to like everybody, but the idea was to work through your ish, but tangibly like use the tools like in the moment while building community. So learning how to do conflict resolution in the community, saying like, this is what I'm working for, and allowing people in the community to hold you accountable.
Yeah.
Wow.
The change is personal, and the change journey, I believe, is a journey that starts off by yourself. But if it all goes well, or if you continue the process, then you will meet people along the way who will walk out different seasons of your change with you.
Yeah. And we talk a lot about that here, about that it's not like a one and done, like you're not just fixed for life and now I'm just good, girl, I got myself together. But how a lot of it is like you're helping people develop tools that they can refer back to, so that when conflict comes, because it doesn't mean that I'm gonna be fixed, I'm never gonna have conflict again, but when it comes, or other issues pop up, or things happen, or triggers come your way, then now you have the resources within yourself to like go back and work through it.
And sometimes, I mean, you might have to circle back around.
Oh yeah. Definitely.
May have to revisit, you may have to reprocess. It requires adjustments, which I feel like in the show, going back to Insecure, I feel like with Molly and Issa, I feel like we'll see readjustments within their friendship, some redefining, like, now this is who I am. Because again, too, the transitions of friendship from like college to professional, and now that you're professional, like dating life, like all of those transitions not only impact self, but it impacts the other relationships that you engage in.
And people don't realize how that happens, and like how like you have to leave room for your friends or even like your spouse to like grow and change, and then you have to kind of like readjust and figure out, okay, well, how do I fit in here now? And some people don't manage that well and lose a lot of friendships around, I'm growing and you're not, and it's like, or I don't want to give you the room to grow and change. Like, oh, why she don't need me no more. Yeah, I think that was the big thing with Issa and Molly was, I think Molly felt some type of way because Issa didn't need her no more. Like she felt like she didn't need her, and like, oh, she's growing and she got her stuff together. She's not the friend that always have somebody else pay for her meals, and
Yeah, exactly.
Like, oh, this is you really did. Because I've had them comments before, like, oh, like even we talked about this, like even with photography, like, oh, you really do photography. No, yeah, I'm a real photographer. Like, Yeah, I do. Oh, y'all have a real podcast? You have how many episodes? Oh, that's a real podcast. Oh.
That's a real, that's a
What
What
podcast.
makes it real?
Podcast.
I want to know what makes it real.
Me
I
too.
thought we was real.
Right.
Yeah.
Oh, people bought tickets to come see you? Like, yeah.
They bought tickets. I'm like,
Yeah.
yeah. I drove to Ohio. You're getting on the road.
Yeah, it's the road tickets.
It goes to show though, like
Yeah.
sometimes we outgrow our friends, but our friends aren't necessarily like ready for that. Like to be very transparent, it was cool when I was working for an agency.
Mm-hmm.
Then I mean, everybody wanted to collaborate. Now being private practice, it's just different because now like people see you, like you do your whole, like people really call you, yeah. But it's a friend, and not everybody is meant to go along with you.
Oh,
right.
And when you see it for what it is, and you move accordingly.
Mm-hmm. And it could be something they're dealing with, within themselves. And is it something that they inherited from childhood? Like I think the example of Insecure is excellent because we saw, seasons 1 through 4 with Issa, right? The first season, she was barely in that apartment. It was like, Second season, she was on Daniel's couch, right? The third season, she had her own. And at the end of the episode, I'll never forget that look that she had. She hooked her apartment up. She sat on the nodded her head. And then the block party, right, was season 4. So it's just like, oh, this is real. And then just the interaction between her and Molly, just really, you could really see like, okay, she really don't need me because she's not that chick no more that is kind of like struggling and doing all the things. I mean, it was, So outgrowing people. I mean, is this something that always lived within Molly where it sparked her? And it's like, okay, she inherited this from her childhood, who knows? But just that kind of, that bumping of heads, really, we saw a lot of that.
And I know we wasn't planning on talking about Insecure, but they're like the perfect case study. Let me just, or like, being an adult and taking accountability for yourself, and stop blaming people. So like Molly had this whole idea of marriage, right? Until she found out that her dad had cheated on her mom and her mom stayed. And she was just so tore up. She couldn't let it go. She couldn't move past it. And as a mom and a wife, like thinking about if that was my situation and my kids found out some stuff like that, you can't be mad at me for what I choose. Like, this is what I chose to do in my life. You lived your life. You was fine in your little bubble. You had no clue what was going on. Like, how you cannot be mad for me. And then like, I like that her brother was just like, dude, like, how long you gonna let this go on? Like, you just gonna keep doing this forever? Like,
the brother. Like, I see Dr. Jackson smiling. What were you thinking this there?
Well, because I mean, that was my parents got a divorce my freshman year in college. And I was just like, y'all need to work it out. Like, my brother was like, wow. Like, they happy, like, why? And I had to like really take a step back. And it was really, I remember my professor, my African studies professor, she was like, you got to take a step back. That's your mom and daddy. That ain't got nothing to do with you. And I was just like, yeah. Right. Which now being a mother, I mean, me and my husband can go out it all day, but my kid, like, it has nothing to, like, we could show up and still parent for the sake of our kids.
Yeah. Definitely. Yeah. And so then that became her excuse for then while everything else around her was crumbling, her world was this and that. And then just finding things in place, blame, and really she really needed to take a hard look at herself. So sometimes we try to blame people in our childhood for things that we really created for ourselves. So like, I also don't want people to think like, oh yeah, it was my childhood. It was this. No, sometimes it just be you.
Yeah, that's right. Yes,
just be you, boo.
It's so many like distractions, which I tell people all the time, you have to be intentional about spending time with yourself. And then people are like, well, I take a shower in the morning, or my drive to work, I be by myself. But I'm like, yeah, you're listening to music. You're probably thinking about what you got to do at work. If you're like me, I'm always like, did I forget something? I gotta make sure. Did I lock the door? Did I put the garage down? room. But being intentional about just being still and spending time by yourself.
Mm. I know Shawna, Shawna was on a live on Instagram the other week, and they were asking her about her meditation practice. And she was like, yeah, I have to get a good 2 hours. And the lady interviewing her was like, oh, wow, 2 hours? She was like, yep.
Just to start the day. But I stay in a meditative state as much as possible. I use different techniques and tools to keep myself there, because I found that for myself, I have to constantly pour, because of exactly what you just said. The amount of distractions that we deal with today is ridiculous.
Yeah.
And we have to be intentional, like you mentioned. We have to do things on purpose. Every day we have to do it on purpose, you know? And so I'm totally in agreement with that, without a doubt.
Yes. Yes. We touched on that a little bit too of the previous episode, just some tips of, accountability and just really being intentional about, okay, maybe I do need that alone time. And it's like, so are you counting the clouds doing that alone time? Or are you doing the work? Or are you trying to find other distractions while you're alone? Do you have some tips to deal with that? Because sometimes you're alone. It's like you're hearing the crickets. You're like, okay, I got to be doing something. What do you recommend? People
about me, Linda.
Think about that. No, I wasn't looking at you, Jeanette. What do you do when you...
Just sit still, sit down.
Right, that's why I said,
honestly, like just telling yourself, and sometimes I have to clock myself to slow myself down, because I'm a person, I can just like go. And to me, I think when I sit down or when I rest, like I want to be done. However, making myself, and I have alarms for like everything. Like literally this morning I had set an alarm clock for 30 minutes. I wasn't doing nothing. And I just laid on the bed. I just literally laid on the bed, and then I was like, oh, I can be taking the dishes out the dishwasher. I was just like, no, like just be still. Even coming from work, and my kids know, I'll pull in the driveway and I'll sit outside for like 15 to 30 minutes. Now they'll come to the window and wave. But they know mama gotta sit there. If you want mama to come in and be functional and be present, then mama need her downtime.
Yeah.
Devon, she realized that when she was out of college and was working full time and like having those really long, stressful days at work. And like, she just lived with roommates. Like she ain't had no kids. And I remember her calling me from her car one day. She was like, Mom, now I know why you used to pull up at the house and tell me to get out the car and that you'd be in a minute and just sit there in the car. She said, now I understand. I just be sitting here, I don't be doing nothing. I just be sitting here like, I don't want to go in, because there's more responsibility. Like as soon as I walk in the door, like you said, I need to put the laundry in the dryer. I need to wash the dishes and cook dinner. Like yesterday, I came home from working all day on a Saturday, and I was like, I told myself, I was like, I have to go in and go straight in the kitchen and cook, because I know if I sit down, it's a wrap. I ain't doing nothing
pretty
else.
Much.
I mean, let me just keep it.
Yep.
Let me just keep it moving.
Yes.
So yes. I know we talked about like, a little bit about like, childhood trauma and like, understanding like, where figuring out where those things come from and working with like a professional. So like once you figure out those things, right, and where they come from, a lot of people can't move forward even when they know like, okay, this trauma is what caused this behavior, but they can't move forward when people in their life don't take accountability for their actions that got you to that point. How do you move past that and still take accountability for your actions when other people won't take accountability for theirs?
Well, then you shift the narrative, right? It's kind of like going back to forgiveness. Like forgiveness is not for them, it's for you.
Yeah.
And taking ownership, recognizing your behavior, taking ownership from it, learning, because just because you take ownership from it don't mean you don't learn from it, but learning from it and then actively putting in practice. Because oftentimes, especially when it comes to trauma, specifically childhood trauma, a lot of our environment, a lot of our caregivers have their own trauma. So I always say lead with grace, that they had their own issues. However, by doing your work, you now want to live your best self. And that will look differently from those in your environment, and being okay with it. Because to be very transparent, I feel like, especially Black women in therapy, and Jeanette, you and I have had this conversation multiple times. We do our work and we want to take people with us.
Mhm.
But the reality of it is that they gotta want to come.
Yeah.
They gotta want to come. Because if not, we're pulling them and we get frustrated. We get anxious. We start losing
Why you
sleep.
don't just get this? It's so great on the other side. Come over here with me.
Come with me.
So we have to be accountable for our actions and for our behaviors.
Mm-hmm. Yep.
And I think knowing what's for you too, Dr. Jackson, like there are so many, there's a lot of great things that happens when you start doing the inner work and you're consistent with it. And as you start seeing the shift and the change in your life and the happiness and the joy and the peace and everything that comes along with it, knowing that that was just for you is sometimes something that we have to accept. When you said you can't take everybody with you, sometimes you have to really look at it dead on. It was like, this actual gift that I'm experiencing is from myself. It's because not to be selfish, but to be selfish, right? So there's some truth to that. It's okay to feel good by yourself, I guess is what I'm saying.
And I like it because I often tell people too, like, when you are healing, you got to be selfish.
Oh, yeah.
Because society is set up like either we're doing stuff all together or we are doing something in order to help other people. Like now we know the precedence of like self-care and taking care of self so that we can take care of others. But we didn't grow up, well, a lot of us didn't grow up with that. So it feels odd. It feels like I should be doing something, which is why when we have free time, it's like, okay, I know I need to be doing something. And we'll play this mind game when the reality of it is, it's like, just be still, sis.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Sit down. Like my homegirl called me the other day and she was wanting me to tell her why she needed to go to Target in like 10 minutes, going back and forth. I was like, girl, sit down. Just sit down.
You know, I've done as much as picked up my phone and I'm like, what was that? Why did I pick this phone up? I don't even know what I picked this phone up for. Like, just be looking for something to do.
Yeah, looking for something to do.
Because we've overtrained ourselves through the years. We're doing the same thing with our children. We are overtrained ourselves. We get to this space where we feel like being busy is actually doing real work. When a lot of times, if we break down what we're doing and why we're doing it, we're not doing what we're supposed to be doing, if that makes sense.
And Shawna, you brought up the kids. I was actually going to bring that up. So when we're also, so a lot of our listeners majority of our listeners are 40 plus, like 40 to 59 in that age range. And so we either have older children or maybe empty nesters. You have a variation going on. And now you're at a space where I can really start thinking about who I want to be or how I want to live for myself. And then you get frustrated because you're trying to get your kids on board or this and that. And it's like, they are adults. They gonna have to figure it out at some point. And like, it's hard for a lot of, especially moms, not so much the dads, but especially moms to let go and let their kids hit a wall and figure it out.
That part.
Yeah.
Sometimes you gotta let them fall. And I'm saying that, y'all, and my kids are 7 and 3. Cause y'all my baby. It's like, it just looks so cute doing any and everything. But I know he will grow up. But when it goes to taking accountability, sometimes we just gotta let our kids like fall.
Yeah.
Definitely.
And not over-engineer it for them. It's like, guilt. Lose my little hands.
Because there's a lot of women out here complaining about these men who mamas and baby them to death. Mama's boys forever. And now they sitting there looking at you like, well, you're not gonna do that for me? My mama did.
Exactly.
My mama did.
Right.
No.
Yeah.
I got my call your mama and tell her to take you back. Like,
they appreciate it in the long run.
ASAP. ASAP.
Yes. Return to sender. I hope that doesn't happen to me. I might be calling you Dr. Jackson. No. But it's, it's like you gotta let go. It's like, but then they also appreciate it more too. I have a 20-year-old son and a 13-year-old daughter. Now the 13-year-old Maddie, she's part of the podcast. She is like on it. She's like this. Miles, it took him a little longer. He's away at college now, but shoot, 3 weeks into him being in his freshman year, he's a junior now. He knew, he was looking around like, what just happened? He came home on the fall break and I'm like, are you good? I said, how is it getting up at 8 o'clock every day? I just have to wake him up, drive him to school. He's looking around like, what just happened? But he's grown up, in these last couple of years. Yeah.
So, they appreciate it afterwards.
Oh yeah.
Mm-hmm. Like, oh, you used to do all this for me? I sure did.
Yeah.
Devon called me talking about in the middle of the night crying when she was in college because she didn't have no medicine in her dorm. Like, we keep Tylenol, NyQuil, whatever, all kind, anything you can wake up in the middle of the night, go downstairs in the cabinet and get what you need. She's like, I don't have anything and nothing is open. And I was like, girl, you are not dying. You will be fine. If you were, then just go to the ER. But there's like a 24-hour Walgreens and CVS. I don't want to go out by myself. I said, well, you gotta wait till the morning. What you want me to do? That's the best when you can't like just jump and get something. Like, what you want me to do? I can't do it for you.
Right. That's right. So wow.
I think so. But you learn as you go.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah, definitely. So I know you were giving us a few pointers on like things that they can do to kind of just like take accountability for yourself. And I like the point that we talked about with forgiving like yourself for your past, so that you can move forward and make better decisions for yourself. Are there any other like tips or advice that you feel that we should definitely touch on and share with the people around this?
Well, I also too want to say taking accountability when you've done wrong or when you don't know something.
Okay.
Because I often feel like, depending upon how you show up in a room, who's at the table, oftentimes people may look to you as the expert. And I tell people all the time, I don't know everything. I know a lot, but I don't know everything. And saying that I don't know something, and letting people know you don't know it, but moving forward to find the resources and or being humbled enough to learn from somebody else. Because I often feel like, and this is a whole other podcast that I would want to tell y'all later, but me understanding that life is happening, and in life happening, sometimes we also too have to relearn or rework how we operate. And it's okay. Like it's okay.
Yes, that's
That's
the new norm.
That's the people that's out here struggling with COVID right now and like the pandemic, and that you have to, this is what's happening in the world right now. And it's not changing, and it's definitely not going back to the way it was in 2018, 19.
Yes,
so,
exactly.
And move forward. But we talk about that humbling, we talk about humility, and how people use that to like play small. Like, oh, I'm just going to be humble. I'm just, I just don't want to, talk about
too big.
I'm going to be too big. I don't want to take up too much space because I'm just going to be humble. And like, it's a balance, and, having humility and not like having like that ego trip, but then also allowing yourself to be seen and heard and show up at the same time. But I do also like what you said about, like, if I don't know, I don't know. And it's okay that I don't know. And I don't have all the answers right now.
Right.
But not using that as an excuse to, some people, well, I don't know. One of the things that gets under my skin is when I say something to one of my sons, and it's a very specific one, you know who he is. And I say, he's like, I don't know what that means. I'm like, well, go look it up and then come back to me. Because you just saying you don't know what that means is not going to fly as you get older.
Right.
You got to figure it out. Use your resources. There's too much information out here. There's no excuse to just continue not knowing.
Right. Agreed. Take ownership.
When you know better, you do better. Stop with the mess and the shenanigans.
Yes.
Well, and I often feel like too, because somebody asked me the other day, why do I feel like people don't go to therapy? And I feel like people don't go to therapy because of that, because they're going to realize by working through their mess that now once you recognize it, what you going to do about it?
Yeah.
Because the life that you once lived is no more. So how walking through all of that is accountability, but also to learning how to live differently.
Being self-aware, man, let me tell you something. That's probably one of the biggest gifts that I gave myself through therapy, was becoming more self-aware, like either what triggers me, why I react the way I do, and my own bad behavior and bad habits. And you be mad, you be cussing at yourself, you be like, why are you acting like that? But you know why you acting like that. And it's just like, you be so mad at yourself. And so I can definitely see how people, because me and my husband talked about that. And I asked him, I said, would you ever go to therapy? He talking about for what? And I was like, boy, we all got baggage. And he was like, yeah, but you be thinking about that stuff too much. I ain't got time to be thinking about that stuff. I just don't think about it. And I'm like, don't mean it ain't there and it ain't showing up.
That's right. Very true. Very true. Yes. Seek therapy, unbiased perspective. I think that's one of the things we wrote down. I think you mentioned it earlier. Like maybe it can't be somebody that's in your circle, or shouldn't be somebody that's in you really need that other perspective to draw those things out, because they're going to sit there. You're going to sit there and just stewing it all.
And as great as your tribe is,
of wanting more or feeling stuck or saying, well, everybody else is moving forward and I'm not. I'm like, okay, well, what are you doing? Like, what are you doing? Because I believe to elevate, to reach your highest potential, you got to do your own work.
Yeah. And some people, they be like, and we've had this conversation before, some people feel like, oh, I got to get myself together first. Like I got too much mess. Like, let me clear up some of this mess before I go talk to somebody. Like, that is the point.
Right.
That you have not been able to clean it up on your own, and just show up as you are. And get the help, sis. Like, stop.
Yeah.
And it's okay not to be okay.
No,
you're not okay. What are you doing to be okay? Like, that's when you see professional help.
Yeah. Shawna, was you about to say something?
Yeah, I was going to say something about, I agree with Dr. Jackson and agree with what you ladies are saying about, going outside of your tribe and everything. My first time doing therapy was with my bereavement counselor after my husband passed away. And I knew that just talking to my family was not going to help me get to where I am now. I'm extremely proud of myself and the work that I have put in the last 2.5 years. I love my family and I love my friends, but they could not give me what I needed. And I needed that unbiased attention. I needed that one-on-one. I needed someone to take me for who I am and what my feelings were and what I was going through. And there were things, so many things I could share with my therapist that I could never share with my family or even closest friends. My innermost thoughts of just how everything was unpacking for me back then. So there is value in stepping outside of the tribe, your comfort zone. And if the regular tools that we talk about on the podcast is not enough for you, there's nothing wrong with seeking additional help. And I'm so proud of myself that I did that, because I wouldn't be where I am today without therapy.
Too, Shawna, definitely. We're definitely proud of you too. And like Shawna said, just to tag on what you said about the podcast, I mean, use this as a blueprint. Really listen to this episode, take notes from Dr. Jackson in this particular episode. Just really, if it's not enough for you, we have other resources, but definitely take this, get your pens, papers, Post-it notes, always say that, and really write down some key points so that you can take the steps to where you are. And I like Jeanette's point about, I'm just going to get myself together first before I go. I mean, that's the reason why we some people we may have to drag there, but they need to get there somehow. I mean, because really deeply important in doing this important work. So you show up as your best self.
And sorry, Dr. Jackson, I have a question for you. So I looked up, right? I went on therapy for Black girls. I looked for someone in my area and I'm gonna take a shot. And so I looked up my first time, like she's the one. It worked out great. But like a lot of people struggle with how to even find a therapist. How do you pick someone? Like, do you go to that person? Because it's hard to tell, like when you're like not fully believing that you need therapy, and then you meet someone, you're like, no, she don't understand me, she don't relate to me, and really it just be used. Like, so is there any advice on like how to go about finding a therapist that, you know, might be a good fit for you?
So I always say date your therapist, and it's okay if you date multiple. but mainly making sure that and I'm gonna have to go there, that culturally y'all on the same page, because that matters. And then making sure that they have experience in what you are willing or what you are wanting to work through. Mm-hmm. Because therapists or counselors, it's very general, it's very broad. However, there are different specialties and different modalities that your therapist uses. And so asking them those type of questions. I know Therapy for Black Girl has an actual like guide on what to ask your therapist. And I always say, if you go into it and the therapist is like, like, why are you asking me all these questions? Then that's not the one for you. Mm-hmm. Like, that's my biggest red flag.
That's a red flag.
Yeah.
That's good. That's good. Because we use that as an excuse. We use that as an excuse. I was trying to meet a friend, we were looking for some like a couples counselor for her and her boyfriend, and she was like, oh nope, she can't be this, she can't be that, and I definitely ain't having no man that's this and that. And I was like, I don't know how y'all gonna find somebody. Y'all gonna be he ain't gonna be responsive to that. And it's sad that to say, like, that first impression of just looking at the picture and be like, nope, not that one. Like, I'm like, well, you can't just base it off a picture. You gotta go meet these people. Go talk to somebody. Just pick somebody and start there, and then find somebody else. But you can't just look at the picture and be like, I don't like her face.
No bueno.
And like dig deep into like, because again, now everything is like social media. Look at that social media.
Mm-hmm. Mm-hmm. Really dig deep and look into it. Yep.
Important, very important.
Ladies, did y'all have like your mind work? Like, this is your well-being. Yes. Like, it should be taken as if you are looking for, like, you wouldn't go to some surgeon off the side of the street, or you wouldn't go to a surgeon who only had 2 blurbs. No, like, you would go to a surgeon who's like qualified, you know, who's board certified, who has history, like all of that.
Yeah. And another thing is, you don't have to only go see someone when the world is crumbling underneath your feet. Like, sometimes it can be preventative. And that's even like, so I talk about this even like in a nonprofit space, that we offer a lot of services, but unfortunately we don't see people until there's a crisis. And how do you get people to be more proactive about their personal needs and their personal situations? And it's the same thing with therapy. Like, for me, that's what it was. I mean, of course, I had some things I was dealing with, but I didn't feel like I was in a bad space when I went. It was because a family member had attempted to take their life, and me and some other family members took a look at ourselves like, we joke a lot about, girl, we could use a little therapy. And I was like, yeah, I'm not joking no more. I don't want to get to that point. Thankfully, the family member lived, but like, I don't ever want to get to that point. And so now I need to be proactive about my mental health and staying in a positive space. And I think that's important for people to understand, that you don't have to be in a crisis. If you are in a crisis, please seek help, but you don't have to be in a crisis. So if you're sitting here listening like, oh, I'm good, I don't need it, just go talk to somebody. Because let me tell you, they got a special way of making you realize that something. Like, I didn't even think that was an issue. I wasn't even thinking about that. Mm-hmm.
Yes, because again, like you live in it, and you begin to cope daily. I always say Live to Survive, where like we just add it into our bucket and it's like, okay, I gotta wake up and I gotta complete this day. Not really taking time out to like take stuff out of our bucket and be like, ooh, like that's real, or I need more information about this. Where therapy is like lay it out there, because people are always come in here and be like, no, I'm good, and then they start talking and I'm like, well,
Yeah, you be rambling off all kinds of stuff, and you be like, I don't even know what I'm talking about anymore. And I'm glad that y'all be understanding, because I just sometimes I'm just like, I don't even know what I'm saying right now. Wanda, Shawna, did y'all have any other questions around this topic or things that you wanted to touch on with Dr. Jackson?
Yeah, I think that was good. Great. I like the way we was able to tie Insecure in there, because Dr. Jackson, our heartbeats love Insecure. We'll be doing live recaps in our Facebook group after every episode this season. So
I feel some type of way about my leads if they're not. You know. Need to work it out. I need them to work.
Because they was about to like really go to blows at that block party. I was like,
that was deep.
Everybody just need to be, like Kelly, just live your life.
Right. I love Kelly. And I mean, by the time this airs, I think we'll be at least 3 or 4 episodes into the new season. So I'll be curious if our predictions or what we're talking about here kind of maps over to what's actually like, I'm gonna need this to like happen. Like we need, This is great. Well, thank you, Dr. Jackson. This was really wonderful. I mean, all the points. I mean, I like the advice for find a therapist, and that cultural piece is an awesome point. I actually gave that advice, to someone that I know recently, because you got to be in that alignment too.
Right.
About that. Yeah. So thank you. This was really great.
Thank you. Thank you for having me.
And how is there a place that people can go and learn more about some of the programs and things that you're offering?
Yes. So you can find me on Instagram at Jackson Consultings LLC. I am getting ready to roll out a community healing program. It's called Holiday Blues, where we will meet once a week from November until December, where we can sit and process and have open and honest conversations within our community, discussing our family and some of the craziness that they bring into our lives during the holidays.
Great.
That is the perfect name for Holiday Blues. My way of dealing with it. I don't do holidays, and I send everybody out, and I stay home by myself on the holidays. Like, y'all go have fun. But thank you so much for being here. I just really appreciate you taking this time and coming on and talking to our audience. I just feel like it's just an important conversation, and just also making it not taboo to talk about therapy and taking care of ourselves. And, it's not, I'm gonna just say it. This is not what white people do. All people go to therapy, and all people need therapy. Yes. And unfortunately in our community, we have put these labels on things that are just like, oh, we don't do that. You can talk to Jesus. Jesus said, I gave you everything you have within you. So you need to go out and talk to somebody and figure it out.
Yeah.
Doctors too.
Exactly.
Way of thinking. Yes, this is wonderful. I've been dying to have this conversation. Thank you, Dr. Jackson.
Yes.
So much for joining us on this. So, Heartbeats, ladies and gentlemen, anybody getting to know us, you can follow us at the Heart of Chat on every single platform there has been built. And come back next week and every week, everybody, because it's going to be fuego, baby. Come back.
Yes. Thank you, ladies. Thank you, Dr. Jackson.
Thank you.
Bye.